And I read that you had been awarded by Coretta Scott King an award for freeing slaves in your generation?
Yes. This was about 18, 19 years ago. Sudan, which is Africa's largest country, was undergoing a jihad. Arabs from the north were attacking the black Christian community in the south and killing the men and capturing the women and children. And I broke the story in the New York Times, and I created the American Anti-Slavery Group. And we brought world attention to the fact of this happening, modern day slavery. And I linked up with an incredibly wonderful group called Christian Solidarity International. And they had arranged for ways for us to buy back slaves from their masters in Sudan. And I went 3 times. One time was on Passover, which made it all the more meaningful. And we regained slaves. We liberated, we emancipated slaves. And Coretta Scott King flew to Boston and gave me an award for that. So, yes, I did.
That's nice. We're approaching Passover, the holiday where we commemorate the Jews' freedom from bondage in Egypt.
Right.
And so there's a probably more of a sensitivity now and appreciation, at least for a week, on the idea of Jewish suffering. And many Jews today don't correlate what God did to free us from slavery with the perils that we are facing, as we say, in every generation. They rise against us. And
that's right. That's the line that every Jew in the world who goes to a Seder, and that's most Jews in the world, are going to be saying. In every generation, in every generation, they rise up to destroy us. And, we thought America was going to be an exception, the Golden Medina, right? America was not going to be like this. And yet, over the past few years, we've seen a dramatic rise in anti-Semitism. It's horrible. And it's coming from every source. It's not just one source. It's it's a perfect storm, 4 winds of hatred. You've got the ancient and inevitable right-wing, white supremacist, neo-Nazi Jew hatred. That will always be there. But in addition to that, and I think worse than that in the long run, you've got left-wing anti-Zionism, which is the new anti-Semitism. You've got a particularly nasty case of black anti-Semitism, headed up by Louis Farrakhan and his acolytes, who now have friends in Congress. And then you've got Islamic Jew hatred, which has, you can go on your laptop and click around and see pretty quickly mosques around the United States where their imams are saying horrible, horrible things about Jews coming straight from Quranic sources. So the Jews find themselves in a lot of, you and I grew up, there were guards in front of our Jewish institutions. Now there's practically no Jewish building or institution which is not guarded by security. And so the external threat is there, mounting, diverse, strange, crazy. You've got this red-green alliance where you've got the left and the Muslims who disagree on everything in the world.
Red being communists?
Yeah, red is the communists, green is the Muslims, right? So this is the alliance that the red-green alliance is chasing the Jews out of Europe. Polls of Jewish communities in Europe show many, many, many people, a larger and larger percentage of the Jewish population, think there is no future for Jews in Europe because of the red-green alliance. So you've got, how do you explain this? You've got people who like free love, 25 different genders, who are linking hands with people who throw gays off roofs and beat their wives. And say they're supposed to beat their wives. So, anti-Semitism is a magnet for every ideology today, and it's extraordinarily dangerous. And what's worse, and that's what I think we're here to talk about, is the failure of Jewish community leadership to comprehend even the nature and extent of the assault on the Jewish community. So this is, most Jews don't even understand how surrounded and assaulted ideologically and now physically we have become, because they listen to their leadership, and their leadership is telling them, oh, it's the right wing, it's the neo-Nazis, it's the guys who say, that's who it is.
The white supremacists.
The white supremacists, right? But that they're really nothing. I mean, yes, they kill, and they have, and they will, but in terms of the larger, longer range danger, I mean, there are no neo-Nazis on college professors. There's no neo-Nazis on college campuses. Neo-Nazis are not accepted into society, but anti-Zionists are, and Farrakhaners are, and Muslims who have horrible feelings and hatred toward Jews are. So,
how about this anti-Semitism creeping into the mainstream of Democrat orthodoxy? You originally mentioned it as a leftist anti-Semitism, but today, this notion of Israeli nationalism or colonialism, or it is interpreted as a colonialism akin to the American settlements, the British Empire, and is becoming mainstreamed Democrat.
Right.
And how is that manifesting?
Well, before we go to manifesting, it's the squad. It's Rashida Tlaib, and it's Ilhan Omar, and it's they get away with saying that the Jews. It's all about the Benjamins, baby, right? So it's Jewish money that is buying all kinds of protection for Israel. It's not that Americans would naturally like a Jewish state, which is democratic, compared to the Arab world, which is anti-democratic. It's not that. It's Jewish money. And then when the Jews go to the Democratic Party and say, listen, you've got to condemn this woman in those words, they didn't do it. They wouldn't do it. What they did was a hoax. What they did was they said, oh, we'll condemn hatred. So they listed every hatred known to man since Cain killed Abel. Anti-black, anti-Muslim, anti-gay, anti-Hispanic, this, that, and the other, and anti-Semitism, and they became against that. But they did not condemn this woman for her hateful words. So the left the far left is taking over, swallowing the Democratic Party that was the party that we knew and grew up with, and most Jews cared about and still care about. So at base, however, this is a problem of postmodernism or wokeism or progressivism. It's an updated Marxism that is defeating classical liberalism. And anti-Semitism falls right out of that. So it's not just that they don't like Jews, they don't like whites, they don't like progress. The progressives hate progress. And this is the fight of our times. And the liberals themselves are losing this battle with the progressives. And I think this is, the most dangerous thing that's happening. But in terms of Jewish leadership, they don't understand this.
When you say Jewish leadership, how would you characterize that?
Well, I would talk about the Jewish establishment. And let's talk about 3 or 4 main groups. Jewish federations. In every city where there's a lot of Jews, there's a Jewish federations that are meant to be an umbrella group representing all Jews. Okay.
For communal activities.
For communal activities.
And what else? And for charitable...
Okay. And for charity, they're the ones who... That's the welfare department, right? The health and welfare department of the Jewish community, the federations. Okay. Then you have the Jewish Defense Agency, the ADL, which is supposed to be the people who defend us. Well, they have failed, and it's their failure that is massively endangering the Jewish community at this point.
And why would you attribute the failure to this particular agency?
Well, that's their job. That's their mission statement, to protect the Jewish community against anti-Semitism, and they're failing. They're failing. They started to fail in the 1980s when the former head of the ADL, Abe Foxman, who was there since who knows when. He was a child of the Holocaust. He's child of the Holocaust. And in his mind, Nazis, neo-Nazis, Christian anti-Semites were the problem, right? Well, guess what? A new anti-Semitism arose, and he missed it. And it's called anti-Zionism, in which Israel became the Jew of the nations, singled out by people who wanted to single her out and and accused of every possible crime, thought to be the worst state among the cruelest of the nation states. And people were very worried. You know, you sat there, I sat here in Boston, and I watched the Boston Globe every day pick on Israel, right? Every day. And we started a group in Boston. I helped start the Boston branch of CAMRA, Committee for Accuracy and News Reporting, with Andrea Levin, who's now its president. It's a great organization. And when we started, some people from local ADL who were good. Actually, Lenny Zakem, who, if you know anything about Boston, the Zakem Bridge is named after him. He came to us and he said, "Don't start CAMRA, because we should have the ADL be the ADL for Israel."
Watchdog.
The watchdog on the media. And we said, "That's a good idea. See if he can do it." And he wouldn't do it. He did not want to go after the New York Times because he needed to be able to print his letters in the New York Times about what he cared about. And what he cared about at the time was, you know, Pat Robertson was the biggest threat, he thought. You know, he would talk about neo-Nazis and the Christian right and all of that. So and of course he had liberals on his, you know, anti-Nazi liberals on his board who wanted Israel, who thought Israel really needed some tough love, maybe, or that this was only criticism, legitimate criticism of the Jewish state, and which should be allowed and encouraged, and not called out for what it was, which was not legitimate criticism, because no other state got the kind of criticism that Israel got, and that's the mark of anti-Semitism. If you treat the Jews differently than you treat everybody else, you know, it's not about legitimate criticism. Yeah. So if you don't know that picking on Israel is the new anti-Semitism, Abe Foxman, then, you know, go get a different job, because you can't defend us. And he didn't. And he also didn't know anything about Islam. And, you know, he came to Boston in the middle of a fight that we had here, with a mosque that was a Muslim Brotherhood mosque. And Foxman told the Jews of Boston, well, if we're nice to the Muslims, they'll be nice to us. So he was an abject failure when it came to, you know, he was good at fighting the Nazis. But when it came to fighting the new anti-Semitism, he wouldn't go on campuses. He wouldn't fight the wars that were being fought on the campuses against the Jewish students by left-wing professors, by Palestinianist professors. And so he was a terrible failure. And then what he did was...
By the way, I know where you're going with this. If I may ask you, why did he soften up in his later years, or in his later tenure?
I don't think it was a softening up. I think it was he was still tough on Nazis, you know. But you know, fighting Nazis is kind of easy. You don't get anybody inside the Jewish tent arguing with you that that we shouldn't fight Nazis. I mean, everybody in America wants to fight Nazis except 6 guys on the corner, you know.
But wasn't leftist anti-Semitism, and we can say anti-Zionism, an issue even during? I mean, the switch only came a few years ago.
Well, no, it was starting to come during his tenure, and he didn't want to have the fight inside the academy where it was the worst. It was worse in the media, and then it moved to the academy, right? Or maybe both.
When you say the academy, you mean in academia?
Yes. College campuses, where professors were using their podia to politicize and against Israel. He didn't want to do that because he knew he would be charged with being against free speech, right? And he didn't want to have that fight. And they still don't. I mean, that's why, by the way, this is a very important point. 1989, when CAMRA started to get formed in an important way, again, under the leadership of Andrea Levin, when CAMRA got started to be, it did it because of the failure of the Jewish establishment to take on anti-Zionism, and particularly in the media and on campuses. I mean, when Foxman said no to taking on the role of media watchdog, that was the moment that I believe historically the Jewish destiny in America, or I shouldn't say destiny because we don't know what our destiny is, but the Jewish story in America changed. And that was the moment when these other groups came up to try to put their finger in the dike and stop it. There was CAMA, then there was the David Project, there's Stand With Us. VOA was always there and will always be there. But, you know, Foxman didn't listen to Lenny Zakim's entreaty to be the ADL for Israel. And that was an historic moment, as I say, that marked a turn in Jewish fortunes in America. Because once you could say that Israel was among the cruelest of nations, what did that mean? It meant that the vast majority of Jews in America were supporting one of the world's cruelest nations. And then Israel became racist. So what does that mean about the Jews in America who support Israel? Wow. So we're colonialists, we're racists, we're settlers, we stole people's land. If you don't beat that, who are you in America? And that's why there's a rise in anti-Semitism. That's the opening salvo that makes it now, I wouldn't say it's accepted, but it's becoming normalized to hear about attacks on Jews from all over. We were smeared. We were defamed. Hard to fight defamation. So I lay this at the feet of the ADL, whose job, I mean, they're sitting on $100 million right now. That's their, it's reported to be the amount of money they have. And so now Foxman goes away and he gives the job to Jonathan Greenblatt, who himself was an Obama operative, and it was a leftist. And Greenblatt, you know, he was special assistant to Obama and director for the Office of Social Innovation and Civic Participation in the United States Domestic Policy Council. He was a big shot in the Obama administration. And he turned ADL now into a progressive force, which is trying desperately to embrace a left that is kicking the Jews in the teeth. So I know about them here in Boston, and I know about them nationally, and this is really, really a problem, and the Jews don't know it.
Well, I recall when Abe Foxman was running the organization that he broadened the scope of anti-defamation to go beyond just anti-Semitism and also include Islamophobia.
Right. So if you're a progressive and what do you want to do? You want to, I mean, look what's happening now. What's happening now is the Jews on campus, even the most leftist Jews, the most progressive Jews, but who are not anti-Zionist, okay? The most left-wing Jews on campus who still have the courage to stand up for Israel on campus, they're being thrown out of all of the social justice coalitions. They don't belong. They're not allowed to be in the movements that they want to be in, which is to be for blacks and for gays and for Hispanics and against Islamophobia and all that. So
why is that?
Why is that? Because the left has defined Israel as a white racist endeavor. The Jews are now white. See, because before in the last iteration of massive anti-Semitism, the Jews were killed because we weren't white, right? We were Ubermenschen. We had no land, and we were racial vermin. We certainly weren't white. Now, when white is bad, we're white. Before, when if you didn't have a nation state of your own, you were nothing, and we were nothing. Now, nation states are the worst thing in the world. We have the best. We have a nation state, so they hate us for that. You know, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who of blessed memory,
yes,
said it this way. He said, "You know, whatever is the worst sin during any epoch is what the Jews are blamed for. That's what anti-Semitism is. It is." Right. So when Christianity reigned, we were the killers of Jesus. When nation states, when racial categories were really important and deemed to be scientific, Jews were racial vermin, according to the Nazis. when communism was the worst thing in the world, Jews were the communists. When capitalism is the worst thing in the world, in some societies, Jews are the capitalists. So now we are the supporters of a racist, colonialist state. So what's new? What's new is it's same wine, new bottles. And the ADL didn't know that. And they're supposed to be the ones who know all about anti-Semitism, right? So if you don't know that, quit. Learn to code. Do something else. Let's find somebody else who can protect us. Mm-hmm. So this is terrible. I can tell you in Boston, I'll give you 2 cases.